Hello everyone, it's me, Coffee Stitcher. It is the first actual Sunday in June. So, yay, June! God, what a month it's been already. I won't say much in my video about the current situation. I've said it on Instagram. I've said it in my real life. But Black Lives Matter. If you don't agree, you're welcome to unsubscribe from me. It's as simple as that. So, I hope everyone had as good of a week as possible. It was very interesting and stressful in some ways for us, and in general. So, be good to each other, be kind, and if you're wanting to be an ally, the best thing we can do is listen, donate, and help in the ways that we're asked to help in. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, moving right along, we've got some haul. Actually, a surprise haul. It was very, very nice. We've got whip updates. We've got homework. We've got plans for next week. We've got some Q&A. We got a little bit of everything today, which is always, as you know, my favorite way to go about doing things, is having everything to do. Yay! So, drinking some coffee. I need it today. Frequent watchers may recognize that I got a new Oz book last week that you can see. I got the Glinda of Oz and the Dick Martin editions. That was exciting. So, I now only need 2, 4, 6, 7. I think I just need 7 more. I know they skipped 2 of them and the Balm, but then I think there's 2 of the Thompsons, so I think there's still 14, but there may be 15. Because I know there's not one for Emerald. And there's not one for Magic. No, not Magic. TikTok. Well, that's neither here nor there. Yes. Alright, so, let's see. Where were we? Q&A. Yes, let's go to that. Jinmel53 asks, how will you finish Beauty and the Beast? It's a secret. I actually have a really, really cool idea that I don't know if is going to work or not. So first, I have to find the thing that I want for it to be finished in. Then I have to see if someone can finish it like that for me, because that's not a skill set I've got. Yes. Alright, so the next question comes from Little Miss Sunshine 85. How will you go over how you're making every letter in Maleficent fit with Quaker Oz? That just seems like an overwhelming task. And the answer is yes, I will when I get to the homework this week. Because I got the first 5 letters accomplished. Almost got 6 letters, but I got 5 because I kind of hit a stopping point. I thought, let's just wait. Jen Bishke says, I love the color and cotton floss in the Arctic colorway. If you had to pick a DMC shade close to it, what would it be? So here's Arctic. I would go with, because it's a light blue, but it's got some turquoisey to it. So it's got a little bit of, like 3760, 3761, 3762 in there. It's got a little bit of 800 to it. And it's got a little bit of, like, a darker version of 775. And I know there's a color that's out there, I just don't remember what number it is right now. But those are the colors I would go for, if it were me. Stitching and Sequins, I can definitely give both you and Ayrton a shout out. They watch the videos together. Ayrton is her youngest son, and he thinks it's cool that I'm a guy, and I don't stitch boy type charts. Yeah, because cars definitely are not my thing. So yes, there are guys out there, and we don't stitch just dumb boy things. Or, sorry, not to gender type things, but boy typical, or typically gender stereotyped boy charts. That's the phrase we're going to go with. That was a very clunky phrase, but that's the phrase we're going to go with. So, I like pretty things. That's just me. Let's see. Philip Hoskins asks, what fabric did you use for the Tiny Modernist Every Season Sal? I'm using Portobello from Fabric Flare. Yes, that's the color I'm using. It's the Lugana, I believe. It's an even weave for sure, and I think theirs are all Lugana, but don't quote me on that. All right, Tracy Smith has a couple of questions about patterns sold in books. She says that she's stitching a pattern found in a book, and the symbols are hard to distinguish from other symbols. Is this common in books to avoid illegal copying, or maybe I'm somewhat colorblind as well as needing magnification? The book is Chocolate, Tea, and Cafe by DMC. The chart is Asian Teapot. I'm guessing that's actually supposed to be Chocolate, Tea, and Cafe, and that autocorrect got ya. To be honest, I actually don't have any of the DMC books. They aren't able to be sold in the US for some godforsaken reason, so tracking them down is next to impossible. So I can't speak specifically to them. I think in the case of older books, a lot of the times it was a limitation of what the printer had available in terms of symbols, which is why a lot of times you'll see like a backslash and then a backslash shaded in blue, or a backslash in light blue versus a black one versus a shaded in blue. And I think that's part of it, was just technical limitations of the time period. In terms of modern books, that I don't really know. I don't really think it's to avoid copying, but I genuinely don't know. Yep. Let's see. Amy M121 asks, the frames behind you, the ones that I used when I explained my beading, did I frame them myself? And if so, how did I frame them to not show any wrinkles? While it's very sweet that you think I'm talented enough to frame things by myself, no. Those went to Stitch Niche, and they framed them. And they're professionals at it. Because Lord knows I could not do anything that sophisticated on my own. So, but they framed them, and they did a very nice job here. I'll take this down. So they put paper on the back, and they do little feedy things so that it'll stick out from the wall the same way when you've got your nail and your little hook. And they put a little sticker that says where they did it. And then I always go in and I label along the top or somewhere on here what the actual pattern is. And then I initial and date it, because I don't like to stitch my initials and date. Partially because I can never make it look good, and partially because I feel like it takes away from the finished product. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that I'm the one who stitched it. Deborah Watkins asks 2 questions about With the Needle and Quilts, who the designers are. With the Needle is from Lila's studio. It's available in PDF and paper form in her Etsy, or of course paper form from your LNS. Quilts is a Long Dog sampler. I don't know if it's available in a PDF. It's the only Long Dog I've ever actually really wanted to do, so I just had my LNS order it for me. And Quilts is spelled with a Z, not an S. Right. And that is the end of the Q&A for today. So, moving right along. My one bit of surprise haul, I asked my friend Oliver, the one who works at Fire Poppies, if they carried Cosmo, because Frosted Pumpkin designs a lot of their stuff for Cosmo, and I've never had a chance to use it. And he said no, and then he surprised me. He ordered, and this came this week when I kind of needed it, a little sort of trial pack from Bonnie and Camille of Cosmo. So it didn't have a specific pattern that came with it, but it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 different colors, including their black. I thought they were secured at the top. Okay. Okay. So it includes their black and their white. And they actually feel a little different from DMC. They feel softer. It's definitely an interesting difference. So black for them is 600. White is 100. I got 834, which is a nice pink. 631 and 632, which look a lot like 580 and 581. This is 842, 800, 798, 832, 2402. So clearly they skip their numbers around like DMC does. 898 and 333. So they're really very pretty, and like I said, they're very soft. Much softer actually than DMC is. So texturally, I can tell a difference. So I'm looking forward to getting to try these. So thank you, Oliver. I definitely appreciated that. This was a week. So all right. So moving right along, so the homework, well, first Sunday I worked on finishing part 1 of The Secret Garden, which I did, and part 2 came out, so after the video I'll be starting on part 2. So here is the finished part 1. We're working both above and below the title this week. I used the cottage garden threads in Cosmos for this flower and marigold for this flower. And I also, it's a little hard to tell, but I used French knots for the individual bee centers, and I used the French knots there too. So, this is on brown sugar from Under the Sea Fabrics. So that will be what I work on today. Then, saved. All right, so the first homework assignment was to stitch on something you would find on a ship. So, and we had to do 400 stitches. So I worked on Atlantis from Al Force Embroidery. My goal this month was to stitch 2 motifs, and the 400 actually got me a lot more than that. So you find fish on a boat. So here's where I got. So I basically did this little seaweed frond, this little temple thingy, a jellyfish, this little and this little doo-doo, or doo-bob, and that little blue fish there. So I'm about, I think, a third of the way through the jellyfish panel. So that means I'm like a 12th of the way through the full chart. Maybe closer to a quarter, but I think a 12th. So, or not a quarter. I don't know what I'm trying to math. So that's it for this month on Atlantis. Then our next one was to stitch on something you are ready to be finished. I got over 400 stitches. I lost count in there. I'm a terrible person. But it's definitely over 400 stitches. I worked on Fairy Tale Favorites. Sunday, after I finished part 1 of Secret Garden, I did pull it out and work on this one. I did the little mini motifs. So the bunny rabbit and the glass slipper. So I did those. And then I did Little Red Riding Hood. So here she is in all her glory. I've decided I'm going to go back and undo the skin here on the fairy to make her a person of color as well. That way, I've only got per row only one white character, and it prevents me from having this weird like block of 3 in a corner. So we'll change her so that it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it makes a little bit of a pattern, but it's not quite as bad. So next month is Sleeping Beauty. So that should be exciting. And that finishes this one for the month. So I got 2 of my month's goals done this week. So that was pretty awesome. Alright, then I worked on Chinese Zodiac, and I did partial penalty stitches for this one. We had to do 50 of each color, but since I didn't have any purple in this block, I did 100 of just random. So it was a total of 250 stitches for it. So that's where I got. I know it doesn't look like a ton of progress, but there's 250 stitches there. I do need to frog that little bit out and move it because it was off by a row, and I'm afraid it's going to mess something up to leave it. So I will be working on this one this week, but we'll get to that momentarily. Alright, so then yesterday I worked on differently. Quaker Oz. Oh, I have not done this out of line. Okay, so, and I got a pretty good chunk done. I got like 560 some odd stitches in yesterday. I did make the executive decision that I'm trying to book theme this one a little better. So I'm going to undo the State Fair text to just say OZ on it. The Munchkins are all going to be in blue, and the slippers on Dorothy will be silver. I may go ahead and do a ruby heel, but it's going to be silver primarily. So here's where I am on it. I discovered that the witch and the poppies are all actually 2 rows lower from where they should be. So I had to get a little creative in getting my Yellow Brick Road to line up. But there we go. That's what we got. So for the M, I've got monkeys. A, I have apple tree. L is lion. E is Emerald City. And then F is farmhouse. So that's what we've got so far. And then the I is interlocking pattern, which for the gingham, because those intersect. C is for courage with the lion. Or crow, excuse me, that was what I did. Crows. The second E was for ear on Toto, who's not pictured yet. N is for neck on Toto, and T is for Toto's toes, because we came up with that alliteration and thought that was fun. So Toto gets a lot of lovin' in the second half of this. So I was initially thinking that 1,000 stitches might finish me out on this one. I think 1,000 will probably hit the end of the page, and then we'll have it finished next month. But we shall see. We'll see how the spirit is moving me. So I'll probably work on this again next Saturday to finish out the extra credit there. All right. And that takes us to this week's homework. So this week for homework, we've got 4 tasks. We're waiting on it to load so that I can tell you. Let's try that again. Yes, Facebook, please be slow and don't do what I want. Oh, there we go. All right, so the first is going to be to stitch 300 pieces on a project that you wished for and received. Oh, crap, I forgot to grab the one other project. Let me do that. So, talk amongst yourselves. Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island. That's ha ha ha. Okay. All right. So, stitch on a project that you wished for and received. So, in this case, I'm going to be using quilts from Long Dog. So, here is, of course, the full chart. And I'm working in this section currently. So, there we go. That's quilts. So I'm going to be very anxious to see how far the 300 takes me. But my goal was to stitch on it at least twice this month. So this will take care of one of those. Task 2 was to turn back time, and we had to go back to a previous villain's book and redo one of those tasks. So I'm going to be doing Belle Living in the Castle from back in March. Stitch on a project that has a book in it or is based on a book. So I'm going to work on Literary Alice from Bindi Stitchy. So the goal for this month was to do, and this is 200 stitches. The goal for this month was to do this part and then these up here. So, and here's where I'm at on it. So I've got the center part, I've got Alice herself done, and I'm using a Gentle Arts conversion for this. So, and of course I added some Krynic because it's me. I like the glitter. That said, I may end up using some of those wonderful threads that Rob sent me. So that's number 2. Number 3 was stitch 200 stitches on a project that has a border. You'll get 100 bonus stitches if you actually work on the border. So if I can work my way over to said border, I will, and I think I should be able to, because I'm going to be working on Strawberry Fields, because it has a border. So that's where I'm at on it. So I think my plan is I'm going to stitch on the bird here, and then it'll put me in line to start the border up and along. So, and I'll be deciding on my, I won't be actually stitching the strawberries just yet, because my plan for them is to do different specialty stitches for each one, or like maybe a running tally, and I'll decide that once we get more towards the end of the pickups. And then finally, task 4 was stitch 300 on a project that has horns. The Ox and Chinese Zodiac has horns, so that's what I'm going to work on. So getting some nice, fun little variety in there this week. So yeah. So that's me for today. I hope everyone has a good week. I hope this is a better week across the board. Yeah. So anyhow, have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time.